All right, good evening, everyone, online and in person. My name is Seisha, and I'm the social media manager here at Charis Books and also of Charis Circle. And tonight we are so excited to welcome Kathleen B. Casey in conversation with Robin Morris for a discussion of The Things She Carried, a cultural history of the purse in America, which reveals how bags, sacks, and purses provided the methods and materials for Americans' activism and allowed carriers to transgress critical boundaries at key moments. Tonight, Kathleen will be in conversation with Robin Morris, who's an associate professor and chair of history at Agnes Scott College, where she teaches courses in modern U.S. history, Southern history, and public history. She's the author of Goldwater Girls to Reagan Women, Gender, Georgia, and the Growth of the New Right, and she's an Atlanta native. And now to introduce the woman of the hour, Kathleen B. Casey. Thank you. Who is the director of the Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies program at Furman University, where she's also a professor of history. Kathleen is the author of 2 books, including The Prettiest Girl on Stage is a Man. She's interested in how small things reveal big, textured stories about the past and present, and when she's not reading, writing, or teaching, she fosters dogs. And before I pass the mic on, I just wanted to go over a couple of quick housekeeping things for our online and in-person audience. I wanted to remind everyone in person and online to leave questions or to think of questions to ask our 2 authors, as the Q&A is going to be towards the end of the event. If you're in person, just think of it in your head and keep it there until the Q&A starts. And if you're online, you can just type it out in the chat and I'll voice your question when it's time. And one more thing, buying your book from Charis directly supports our work and allows us to keep putting on events like this. So if you would like to purchase The Things She Carried, you can click the teal button below us if you're online to order it from our website, or purchase your copy up front from Yarrow. And we'll have a signing towards the end for the folks online. All right, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining us tonight. And I am just going to start by saying I loved this book.
Oh.
I learned so much about this book. And some of my friends undoubtedly are not going to love this book because I'm about to inundate them with all kinds of facts about purses. Because it's that kind of book that when you read it, you just want to tell everybody, like, oh my gosh, did you know this? So y'all get ready. All my friends, get ready. I'm going to be citing this book a lot. But they're going to like the break because the last book that did this was about beavers. So they can stop hearing about beavers and start hearing about purses. So this book
sounds good.
Yeah. So this book is about purses, but I think there's like half a sentence about a Birkin bag. There's nothing about Chanel. There's nothing about like bejeweled swans or whatever. So this isn't a fashion book. This is like the utilitarian everyday purse. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us why you decided to write about this like grandma's bag?
I never thought about it that way. Yeah, happy to talk about that. And also wanted to thank you for taking the time to be here and to be in conversation with me about the book, and to various friends who are here virtually and in person as well. Thank you. So yeah, it's a good question. And in part, I'm a weird person to have written this book because I hate purses. I don't like them at all. And people will sometimes give them to me as gifts because they're like, oh, you're the purse person. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm writing the book because I don't like them. And I'm curious about why they seem to be everywhere and so important to so many other people. So I think it's kind of complicated. I remember there's this little picture. I have 3 sisters, and I was probably 5 years old, and I'm carrying like a pink patent leather purse, and we're all posed. I think it's like Easter or something. And I'm like, what did I put in there? Like, what was that for? I was like playing some sort of dress up role, and I remember that being like formative. But anyway, as I got older, I got really sort of resistant towards purses. And I think for some reason they felt like too girly to me. I knew that they were like for girls and women only. And I didn't really understand why, but I didn't like that. And so when I was in grad school, I started carrying a hemp sack, which if you've read the book in the introduction, there's a couple of pictures of it. I actually lost it last week. Isn't that terrible? I had all this time. I was actually walking to a bookstore event and somehow dropped it in the street.
Page 1.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Oscar the Grouch, or yeah, it's like it was a or was.
Yeah.
I like to think someone else is using it now. It fell in the street and it's living another life. But it was a very sort of like unisex, not particularly pretty, certainly no glitter or shiny or nothing, no zippers, no buttons, nothing. It was just literally like a sack that I put over the across my body. And I would stick books in it, and I would stick water bottles and pens would explode and water bottles would spill. And I carried it for about a dozen years, and it got increasingly tattered, like literally like ripped at. And I would like walk around the aisle of a grocery store and like clip the corner too close and then get like hung on one of the things, and then it'd keep going and you could hear it rip. Yeah. So I ended up doing these little surgeries on it. I don't really know how to sew, but I was just
say from the picture, I'm not sure anyone could continue to use it.
Oh, I did,
but
and I became like
I'm not sure whoever found it is. I'm sure they're giving it life.
Yes, I'm sure they have it in it's like a curio.
Found it and loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. But people started to ask me about it. They're like, "What is up with that thing?" We're like, "Why are you carrying that?" And I have a sister who my friend from high school in the audience knows, Maura, who's very fashion conscious. She would just be like, "I'm not going anywhere with you if you have that thing with you. Like, I don't want to be seen with you." And she denies this, but she offered to set it on fire, put it in the garbage disposal when I wasn't looking, all kinds of things to just get it out of my life. And the more that I got feedback like that, the more I became like defiant. And I was like, no, this thing is important. And I really want to wear it everywhere. And I'm going to wear it with like, dressy stuff. And I'm going to wear it in like all these, places where it doesn't really belong. And it just made me think more and more like, why does this object matter? Right? Like, who cares? Why does it seem to say so much to my sister that she just thinks is like, jarring and doesn't make sense, and or is saying something unflattering somehow. And I just started to wonder, like, well, the person's always been this way. Was it always only women and girls who carried them? Why is this object considered feminine? To me, I didn't really understand that. And so I just started digging, and then sort of finding purses in all these interesting places in American history. And so I ended up exploring all these sort of episodes where purses play these unexpected roles that are actually really important, really disruptive, really powerful. And that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And the introduction leads us through how the purse, it's a really quick, fascinating history about how the purse developed from, hiding in their backs.
Yeah, tie on pockets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never had pockets in our clothes. That's also what I learned. There's so much tension between pockets and purses.
Yeah, because we need space, right? We need privacy, and we don't get it. We still don't really get it in equal amounts as men. We have these pockets that are like decorative. They're like literally like fake pockets, where they're pockets you can like stick a dime in and like not much else.
Yeah,
it's like, what is that for?
Yeah, the dime for the payphone that we all need now, right? Yeah, so I'll go to my question about the purses that are providing this space as women's lives became more public, that it allowed privacy within the public space. Could you talk some about how how the purse is a vehicle for us to maintain privacy within the public area?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many things I could talk about there.
I was trying not to give spoilers in the questions.
Oh, okay.
There were so many things. I'm like, oh my gosh, can you talk about this one? Because it's really cool. So I just wanted to give you choices.
Okay.
About which one you thought would be important.
Yeah. I mean, I think I talk about privacy and space in every single chapter. It's kind of a through line.
Oh, good.
Thank you. And purses can also be a form of baggage, and they can be burdensome as well, right? So I don't want to suggest that these are just solely liberatory objects. But I guess that sort of makes me think of, I believe it's chapter 4, where I talk about the bag and the body, and how, you know what? I'm going to reverse course. Talk about chapter 3. Chapter 3 explores the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, which some of you probably learned about, hopefully learn about in high school. It's a major event in American history, labor history. What happened was there was a 3-story fire at a factory where young, mostly immigrant women were making shirtwaists, which were blouses. And they were making shirts that they actually couldn't afford themselves to buy and wear. But at the end of the day, they were always under suspicion of stealing, right? So at the end of the day, they had to wait in line. They couldn't just walk out. The doors were locked, and they have to carry their purse up to like the inspector guy and open it up, and he gets to look inside and make sure there's no ribbons, there's no trimming, there's no buttons, nothing stolen. And it's humiliating for these women. They just absolutely despise it. And of course, this is unsafe to lock people in their workplace, right? And then make them all wait in line. And a fire breaks out in March of 1911, and 146 people die. 123 of those people are girls or women. And the women, we find out in an ensuing trial, which the transcript was recently rediscovered, the women insisted on keeping they called them their pocketbooks, right next to them where they worked. These are women who were sometimes not even allowed to go use the restroom, and they were followed in if they were. And so the purse was the only place that they could really keep all of the things that were important to them, right? And so these are women who are sometimes first in their family to leave the house for waged work, right? And you're using public transportation, they're earning their own money, and they're putting their actual wages in their purse. They're also hiding like little bits of lunch because sometimes they can't afford to even eat 3 meals a day. And things like menstrual rags, like really private items that you wouldn't want a strange man to be able to look at, right? And so the fire breaks out as the women are in line having their purses inspected. And they try to get down one elevator and it snaps, and many of the women end up jumping to their desks out the window, on the sidewalk, holding hands, holding their purses. And the purses were often used to identify the bodies when nothing else was left. But to me, that just showed that these men saw purses as this disruptive, potentially threatening space that they could not see or get their hands on, and sort of insisted on ways of doing that and controlling those spaces because they knew that purses were potentially powerful, right? And of course, the women knew this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then later on, the marketing agencies or the advertising agencies begin to learn that purses are powerful, and they become sort of a stand-in
yes,
for things. Yeah.
That's what I was going to start talking about first last time.
Well, now I want you to talk about it.
Okay. So one of the things that happens in the 20s and the 30s is you start to get Americans start to get kind of obsessed with bodily hygiene and cleanliness. And this is something that gets marketed to women especially, right? So you can see, the early advertisements that are like telling women that they have all these flaws, they got to buy something to fix, right? And so you get all these purse-sized items that are sold purposefully to be kept in the purse, like tiny perfumes. You get lipstick. You get the first commercially available tampons and pads and Midol, things like that came in little tablet form so you could take them with you on the go. And the ads very often feature purses, and especially for things like tampons and pads, they can't show the product. So they're literally just showing a woman's fingers like opening a purse and like slipping something inside, right? And so you can see this sort of like metaphor there that purses are they've often been sort of sexualized too, and sort of we have a psychologist in the crowd who's probably thinking of Freud, right? Freud was big into women having penis envy when they were dreaming about losing their purses, and thought whenever they were fiddling that they were like miming masturbation. And yeah, so there's lots going on with the sort of like, there's like the literal, the utilitarian, and also the psychological and linguistic side of the purse. Sorry, hard to get it back on track now after masturbation.
It will always throw you off.
Yes, yeah. But yeah, just that the purse kind of by the 20s and 30s, when you get all these like highly commercialized products that are aimed at women that are miniature so that they can like discipline their bodies at all hours, no matter where they go, because they're home away from home longer and longer. The purse starts to like become this cipher metaphor for women's bodies themselves, right? And everybody knows that like you don't go in another woman's purse. Even if you're like given verbal permission, you're probably gonna be like, "Are you sure?" Right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't. It's a trespassing, right? And it's
Yeah.
like almost like a bodily violation.
Yeah, that's true. Don't go in first, for sure. Now y'all know. So another tool of the purse that I found really fascinating was I think again in all of these chapters, as much as it's a space for privacy, it's also a tool for resistance in so many ways throughout history. So can you give us some examples of how the purse shows up as this tool of resistance?
Yeah. Well, I have a chapter about the long civil rights movement, and I talk a lot about how Black women in the South used their purses when they were in really dangerous spaces. And so I found all these stories about women like packing things very strategically in their purses when they went to conduct a sit-in or tried to register to vote or were the first to integrate a public school. They would sometimes pack pistols in their purses. So they'd be, donning this sort of middle class church lady look, and everything was all matched and patent leather and everything. And yet they had pistols inside in case they needed them, right? I also have a chapter where I talk about queer people in purses and mention how at the famous Stonewall uprising in 1969 in June, Marsha P. Johnson shimmied up a telephone pole and she had a brick inside her purse and she threw it down on a cop's windshield and smashed it. And I found that's something that a reasonable number of queer people, especially people who were gender nonconforming, would do, because it looked like they were just carrying a purse, but they would have a brick inside or they have a bottle of Southern Comfort that they could drink and then smash on somebody's head. So the purse was literally like an arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, it was so interesting just to think about how, again, that's the private space, but also kind of your armory that you can carry around. Yeah, and again, that was showing up in so many chapters, and I'm really glad you talked about those two, because I mean, my mom is here, and she jokes about, what do you have in here? Are you carrying bricks? It's usually like 3 books that I have in my purse. Which I guess would have the same effect if I were gonna wallop someone Ruth Buzzy style.
But sometimes it literally is a brick.
Yeah. But then I was thinking that, hey, I could literally carry a brick, because usually when I'm going out somewhere, I try to have very little and I try to go light with just pockets. And then I started thinking, like, maybe I should be carrying bricks. I shouldn't put that on the web. Can we delete that? Sorry, rewind. That didn't happen. Sorry. Oh, well, there goes my trial. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm having a hard time staying on track on a Friday night. Thanks for putting up with me. Really, I'm just kind of fangirling about this. So you've talked about purses in all these ways, and I think other people have seen a lot of these pictures or studied the triangle shirtwaist and not seen the purses in these histories, or studied Stonewall without seeing the purses. So could you tell us about your process, and how did you go about looking for sources? How did you read these sources?
Yeah. Well, I wish there was like a very clear strategy that I used all the way through, but there wasn't. As far as methods though, I mean, I've always loved working in archives. You go to some collection, you have these items brought out to you and you get to meet them each time and you're like, what is this? And let me try to think of the critical context for this. And that's really exciting. I remember one of my fun finds was going to the San Francisco Public Library and finding a doll called Gay Bob, who carried a purse. It was kind of like a little Ken doll. And
jointed wrists,
hingeable wrists. Yeah. You can imagine why. And that was just so cool. And I was like, I'm so glad this still exists. And has anyone ever requested to see Gay Bob before? Like, taking him down off the shelf? Was I the first?
Where was that?
The San Francisco Public Library.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Went all the way out there just to see Gay Bob. And there were men named Bob who were like suing the company because they were like, "Oh, you ruined the name Bob, and now everyone makes fun of me because of Gay Bob," and just like all sorts of like random threads that I was pulling at. That
so sensitive.
Yes. But yeah, so I wanted to work with textual archives, which, you know, that's kind of how I was trained. So I was like, I'll look at advertisements, I'll look at you know, letters, diaries. I also wanted to do oral history, so I ended up getting to interview a few women who were civil rights activists, and they get to tell me about what they packed in their purse to prepare before sit-ins, including one of the most violent sit-ins in Jackson, Mississippi, at a Woolworths in 1963. And so that was really cool. But I also wanted to work with material culture. Then I didn't have tons of experience doing that. So I wanted to work with objects like 3D artifacts and try to figure out how to read purses as texts themselves, right? And sort of put them in a constellation with each other. And I didn't want to focus on Birkin bags, right? Or Yves Saint Laurent, because there are actually multiple glossy coffee table book. What do you call that? Coffee table book? Yeah. Versions of their there's all illustrated, right? There's not so much text, and they talk about those brands, right? But those brands are not accessible to the vast majority of American women. So I wanted to know, like, what are their average, ordinary working woman have access? What did she buy? What did she carry? What were the materials that her bag was made of? How did it close? Was it securely fastened in some way? And then you see like, oh, zippers being invented and all kinds of different closing mechanisms that are going to make experiencing and working with a purse different, right? And I see the sizes changing and growing, mostly slowly growing, but you know, in the 20s and 30s, the clutch comes in and everything shrinks down again. But like as women's lives get bigger and their roles get more multifaceted and they're gone longer, purses tend to get more durable and larger. And the items that one woman will carry over her life, like the purse she's going to need when she's young and single, is different from what you might need as a mom, you know, with multiple children to care for, when you got to have snacks and toys and all the things to care for a whole brood, right? And then I thought about purses and aging. And so in the epilogue, I talk about how there's been some studies done in the last decade or so that show that purses are really important anchoring objects for women with dementia. So when they have been placed in like memory units and nursing homes, letting them keep their purse on their lap is actually really important. There's a big fear of like purses will get stolen and things like that. But if you let a woman who's been displaced, who's kind of lost so much of what she knows, right, and is disoriented, she can keep this bag that has its familiar heft and smell and fear, and she can literally look inside and pull out pictures of her family. She can pull out talismans, you know, religious totems, anything like that. It's so soothing, right? It makes you feel like, okay, I'm at home. And so there's a way purses also have function as sort of like mobile homes that become really important when we are losing our bearings, and also like when we're traveling and we're in unfamiliar elements too. So that was really interesting. I never thought I would be looking into like aging studies, but I was like, that makes a lot of sense, right? But no one's ever really questioned these things or thought about these things before, because this is a pretty mundane, seemingly trivial object that's everywhere, right? And I think that's why historians have kind of ignored them.
Yeah.
Because they're just, of course, there's a purse in that picture if you look for it, right?
Yeah.
Because
there were pictures that I am so familiar with and that I've taught before. And like in the picture of the sit-in, I know you can't really see it, but I want to look at it. You said there was a wicker purse, and it took me a minute to look at this and see, like, oh my gosh, she did carry a purse. Yeah. And I would think that that's one of the worst things you could take to a sit-in, because how are you going to keep up with it when the violence breaks out? Or Fannie Lou Hamer, it's right up front.
Yeah.
In these pictures of her at her testimony, were you do you like now see purses everywhere?
Kind of.
Because like these are images that I've looked at a million times,
Yep.
and I was never like, and there's Fannie Lou Hamer's purse right on the table.
Yeah.
But of course it was, because you wouldn't. I put mine on the floor, but she wouldn't put hers on the floor. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It was only when I just decided persons have stories to tell, and I'm just going to look for them everywhere. And there's all these episodes and social movements. I'm very interested in American history. I teach the 19th and 20th century. And so suffrage movement, civil rights movement, gay liberation, all of those things. I've always been really interested in and teaching those things.
Mhm.
So I was like, well, let me just look at all of those things from the perspective of this one object and see if I can learn anything new. And then it was a matter of like limiting what I wrote about, because I could look anywhere and everywhere and find really interesting material. And there's lots of stuff that didn't even make it into the book too, that I would have loved to have put in.
Can you tell us what'll be in the sequel? Like what's something that didn't get in that you're like, oh?
Well, there's this woman named Camilla Gottlieb who was born in Austria. Unfortunately, she was sent to one of the concentration camps in Theresienstadt, and she managed to take her black purse with her. And though the Nazis tried to destroy just about everything, she was able to keep like her birth certificate, her marriage certificate, all of these things in that black purse. And I think the reason she was able to keep it, Theresienstadt was one of the like less awful camps, but she was also a seamstress and she was making uniforms for the Nazis. So I think she had a little bit of extra privilege. So she managed to keep it the whole time. She survived Theresienstadt, eventually came to New York City to live with her family. And then she died, I think it was in the 60s. And she never talked about the Holocaust, but when they were going through her closet, they found the purse. She had brought it with her all the way to America and had it all that time. And they opened it up and found all these documents.
Wow.
And so there's actually an exhibit at, it's not up anymore, but you can find it online at one of the Smithsonian's called Camilla's Purse.
Oh my gosh.
And it made me think about purses and war and immigration. And I didn't really get to include a chapter on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of wish I could have, but
yeah.
They wanted me to keep it under 100,000 words too. So that's another.
Yeah, it's also it's a quick read as well. I was kind of sad to get to the end of it. But it's also, if you're looking for a book to assign, students would read this one. I have to say, it's quick. It's really accessible. So yeah, very quick read and really engaging.
I was surprised by how slim it was. I was like, I worked on this for so many years, and it's
and
so
the
skinny.
Images are great.
Like...
Yeah, you did a great job with picking images. It's kind of a find the purse, and lots of ads to let you know they're buying. You're looking at Sears. You're not looking at Bloomingdale's.
Right. There's about 50 images in the book.
Yeah, and like I said, they were images that I was really familiar with. Talking about, you have Rosa Parks's purse, and there were certain purses that you say are kept in the archives, but then other women's who are not kept. Like, we don't know where Rosa Parks's purse is.
I tried to find it, but I don't think anybody has it.
Yeah. But and Aretha, her famous purse.
Yeah.
Carrying all that money on stage.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, and now I'm kind of purse spotting and thinking about the meaning and what's in there. And I was wondering, as I go home, I see all of the Decatur High School students who have the clear backpacks, and then thinking about the clear stadiums. And that's sort of taking away all of this that you write about, the resistance, the privacy.
Yeah.
So how does a historian see this age of the purse and the requirement for clear bags?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I don't think purses are going away. I think like we're always going to have bodies that have needs.
Yeah, you can buy some here at Charis.
There are some back there. I did notice that. Yeah. We're always going to have noses that run, and we're going to need hand sanitizer and who knows what in the coming years. Even in the age of the contactless payment and things like that, and Apple Pay. I think they're still going to stick around. And some people said that purses were going to die with COVID. And purse sales did dip that first year, but it's like a $13 billion industry. It's bounced back and doing very well. So yeah, I think the clear bags are kind of a statement on where we are right now, right? As far as like surveillance, lack of trust, political violence, right? Which we just saw this week. Yeah. And I think it's, it brings me back to the Triangle Shirtwaist fire too, and those women.
Yeah. I think there's also kind of a moment of resistance when I see the girls walking and you can just see the tampons and they're not trying to hide it. It's just, I've been through puberty and I bleed, and you want a clear bag, you're gonna see the tampons, and they'll make, if you're uncomfortable, that's on you, because I would rather have an opaque bag. But see, I've started watching the kids because they also take a long time to cross the street, so I get to watch them a long time while I'm waiting to get home. But yeah, like, it's gotten me thinking about and seeing our world in new ways.
It reminds me also, in the histories I read of interviews with women, there's this book called The Modern Period, where I learned a lot about the history of menstruation, which was really interesting and useful in chapter 4. So girls didn't always carry book bags or purses to school, and they would take tampons and pads and shove them up their sleeves and stick them in their bra, and all of these places that they were trying to secret them to. And I think it's at Furman, we actually have pads and tampons in the women's restrooms for students who need them in the middle of class, right? And it's you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember sticking it up my sleeve at school. I don't remember what I did with short sleeves, but hiding it and being embarrassed.
It's somebody teaches you how to do it, or you see someone else do it. You never have an actual discussion about how to ferret tampons places, but
yeah, it's just this innate knowledge that girls get. I don't know. And we also get it. I love the you talked about the purse at the end of life, but then that's also related to the purse at the beginning of life, sort of your pink patent leather purse, right? But your niece's my first purse, and how we're training girls.
Yeah.
My smart purse. It looks like a sad little purse. It's kind of.
I actually bought one.
Apart.
It's sitting in my office and it talks.
It looks kind of like your bag. It talks?
Yeah.
What does it say?
It's a Fisher-Price toy aimed at little girls, and it has a fake credit card. I think it has a mirror. It might have fake lipstick.
Got a phone.
And keys. Yeah, a fake cell phone. And you open it up and it says, "Let's go shopping." And a few other phrases. Yeah. And I remember this because when my older sister first had her first daughter, it was the first baby in the family. And when she was, I think, 6 months old, 2 different people gave her this My Pretty Learning purse. So she had 2 of them. And I was like, what is that thing? I need to take a look at that. And I just thought, what an interesting way to teach gender roles.
Yeah.
Right.
And it says it's appropriate for 6 months to 36 months. So, yeah, they can. And then I guess they graduate to their pink patent leather purse like you had.
Yeah. I have no idea what I had in there.
Yeah. So this will be my last question. So be thinking of your questions online. Get ready. Get to typing. So at the end, you talk about when our bodies bleed, ache, hunger, thirst, and seek comfort, purses will be there ready to meet their material needs. And I just loved that. So I was wondering, do people in the crowd have things in your purse for when you bleed, ache, hunger, thirst, or seek comfort? I was thinking of that. You remember on Let's Make a Deal when he would get the women would get their purses, and he would say, if you have water bottle in your purse, you get $500. That was my dream as a child. I used to wonder what would I carry in my purse so that I could win on Let's Make a Deal. It was like that and being on The Price is Right were my goals in life. Instead, I just got a PhD. It seemed easier than trying to get Bob Barker to notice me. But yeah, I had never thought about like a purse holding like when we thirst. Let's see, when I hunger for knowledge, because I had this in there. Seeking comfort, the tissues. So all of the things she carried. I also wanted to talk about the title. I forgot about this.
Okay.
Because this is homage to classic Vietnam
Mm-hmm.
book, right?
Yeah.
So can you talk about why you titled? I loved this.
So it was really controversial with the press and the peer reviewers.
I think you win.
You think I win?
Was this yours?
Yes.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I just thought
right.
we've examined every aspect of men's experience, every facet. And for so long we've talked about in history, we talk about war, and we talk about politicians and elections and all these like things that were historically masculine centered. And I wanted to think about the tools that women have used, right? And centering their experiences. Tim O'Brien's book is great. It's called The Things They Carried, and it's like fictionalized experiences in Vietnam. And I just thought, well, if I'm going to write about purses, this title makes sense to me.
Yeah,
and so
a lot of them are fighting their own battles, and
yeah,
I thought it worked really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, tell your press. I was imagining a sort of follow-up book about women's fashion that could just be called like "It Has Pockets." Thanks, it has pockets, because that's what we all say, right? When someone's like, "I like your dress."
Yeah.
Thanks, it has pockets. So
yeah,
you can take that idea for your next book if you want.
There are actually a couple cool books about pockets that came out shortly before I wrote this. There's a book called The Pocket by Barbara Berman and Ariane Fennetou, and it talks about like mostly from a European perspective, pockets. And then there's another book by Hannah Carlson about pockets. The actual name is escaping me, but it's got pockets
also
in the
just
title.
Be the pocket book.
Yeah,
that would work.
Yeah,
that would work.
Yeah.
But yeah, this also covers a lot of pocket history. If you're not into purses but you're into pockets, this book works for you too. So do we have some questions from the crowd or from online?
We don't have any from online yet. We've got any? I have like a million questions. This is so fascinating to me. But I'm nosy, so I'm gonna ask the one about you, because I want to know if your relationship with your hemp sack changed over the course of your research for this book, and also what did it feel like to lose something that's been with you the whole time?
Oh, what's that?
You're not going to have it during dementia.
Oh, I hadn't really thought about that.
You need to develop a new relationship. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking the other day, like this has kind of replaced it. I bring this everywhere. And I was looking at it the other day because I was gardening with it, and I had like dirt fingerprints all over it, and I was still carrying it to school and class, and like hadn't washed it off. And it's all like dented from all the places I've taken it and set it down on the bottom. I think I do like the idea of almost having like a little material emotional security blanket kind of thing that's like wherever unfamiliar space I'm in, whenever I don't know anyone, I have this thing that's mine, and I know it inside out.
Your blankie.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I actually don't really feel a big sense of loss. It was retired. It was in the closet because it didn't really hold anything anymore. I was just bringing it out when I was doing like book talks and stuff because it's really, truly, you kind of have to see it. And I told the audience last Wednesday, I was like, yeah, I lost it on the way here. And everyone's faces were like, they were like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. It served me. And it got me to think creatively about the past and tell a new story. So,
was your sister anywhere near you around the time you lost it?
She was in Boston, but she could have made arrangements.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Yes.
She'll be pleased to know that it's finally R.I.P. Yeah.
Do we have other questions?
You describe purses as a like a mobile like space for privacy and home and comfort. How did, when advertisers started like targeting that relationship with women in their purses, how did that change the relationship with the purse?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it made women feel like they needed more, right? Like that whatever their bodies were not enough, and they had to have all these products with them all the time because you could offend someone's nose if you didn't smell good, right? Or if your makeup wasn't quite perfect. I still think purses are complex, right? Like it's very easy to say, "Oh, this is like a feminist toolkit and it's totally liberatory and like look at all these badass women like hitting people with their purses and stuff like that." But it's not that simple, right? Like I myself consider purses kind of burdensome. For a long time I was like, I feel like one of my shoulders is higher than the other and I'm going to be like this by the time I'm like a certain age. They actually can physically hurt you, right? Um, and they subject you to being robbed, right? Like purse snatching was something I was thinking about a lot, even just that phrasing, right? And how so many people carry purses across their bodies now because it's so much harder to yank off, right? It feels more like it's like part of you in that way. But the idea of someone's clutching their purse, there's this feeling of exposure, right, and vulnerability. And especially that's true when women start taking on more public roles and they start taking up more space in streets and sidewalks and streetcars, right, where they historically have not been. And it's very easy to steal from them, right? And so this is something you also have to protect. It's something you also have to physically carry. That's a pain in the butt, right? And so I think it's complicated. I think if these ads were successful in convincing women that their bodies were offensive and odious, they were probably happy to be able to carry these things around with them. But obviously, that's a mixed bag. Oops.
But I think the ads are also contributing to what you write about with bags bringing respectability to women and showing, particularly you address this with African American women, that they are of a certain class that would carry a bag. And I think that's another thing that comes out through the advertising, and a lot of the like even the cover, like that's the point you were making with this cover.
Yeah. I looked at a lot of portraits, and photographs that women spent some money to pose for and sort of freeze, this is how I want the world to see me, right? And so the ways in which purses appeared in those portraits was really interesting to me. Again, I've seen like a million portraits of women before as a historian of women in the US, but I never like thought about looking for purses and what roles they're playing and how they're positioned. And
Harriet Tubman's purse.
Hers
was more of a bag.
Yeah.
Purse.
She had kind of a
Sojourner
haversack.
Truth had a purse, right?
Yeah. And she carried little photographs of herself that she sold. And some of them, I can't remember if I think it was Harriet Tubman who used to ask, she had pictures of abolitionists and she used to ask people to identify them. And if they could, then she knew that they were really abolitionists and they weren't like kidnappers, and she had to have those with her in order to be able to, use that test.
But yeah, being able to carry your calling cards or whatever you needed to be that middle class or that higher status, whatever it was.
Yeah,
it was really interesting.
Yeah. Hi. Oh yeah.
When we began to have multiple persons.
Oh,
do we need to repeat that for online? Okay.
To be honest, that's not really something I really had thought about before. I think that's a really good point. Some women these days have like a closet full of purses. And to me, that's like, oh my God, you have to kind of constantly shift all your stuff from one thing to the other. Aren't you always losing stuff? Ooh, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, we just had Labor Day. It's the time you go to your fall purse.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what are you wearing?
Yeah,
Where are
yeah.
you going? Yeah.
To me, that's just like such a big pain in the butt. Why would you want to do that? But yeah, people who want to accessorize and match their purses with their outfits, of course, that makes sense. It's also like a class issue, right? So like if you have one purse that you're able to get because you're not paid a living wage, which most of these women were not, right? Historically, they weren't. They would work 12-hour shifts, but they didn't have enough money to like have their own bed or eat 3 meals a day, right? And so having multiple purses was probably not anywhere in their purview, right? Yeah, I think that's a little bit of a later phenomenon, like second half of the 20th century. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about. I haven't read. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, do you have multiple purses? How many do you have? Do you think under or over 10? Okay, I'll take that as over.
Over
Okay,
10, less than 100.
yeah, yeah. I think that the whole anchoring emotional security blanket thing probably is not. Yeah, yeah. 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 So I think that's probably different for different women. People have different socioeconomic backgrounds, certainly too. Um, but I have found in just like talking to women over the last several years about purses that a lot of them have like a relationship with a purse or sometimes multiple purses, but they're like, this one I got when I went to blah, or this one someone gave me at my 30th birthday, or, they often symbolize our connections to others too. And so they're not just a physical artifact, they're about a relationship. Yeah. I would guess that everyone still has a favorite purse though, even if they have a collection.
So I love how your work has made me think about like my past and my mom. Of course, at church when you said like don't go in a woman's purse, absolutely right. You do not want to go. You have to ask and permission and all that stuff. And I was just thinking like she carried everything and like she carried everything for us, and she also carried things for other people, and it made me think of like women's roles and their responsibilities for the community,
Yeah.
and for kids and all that stuff. So I was curious, like the idea of women and their responsibility and the role persons play in them carrying out that responsibility in the various places that they go. I wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah. I think that's why bags tend to get bigger and bigger over time, right? And over the course of one person's lifetime, the kind of purse you need is going to change quite a lot as well. Yeah, I mean, I was one of 4 children. You were one of 5. Like, your mom had to have stuff with her, right? Like a lot of stuff. Yeah, and this is before you could like give a kid a phone or an iPad or whatever, right? Yeah, I that's like a nightmare to me thinking about trying to entertain and feed like 5 little people. And what I already carry this just for me. I like to have stuff. I'm like, well, I might get stuck in a traffic jam, so I need to have that book with me that I've been meaning to read, or that I just need a little more time to finish. And what if I like get run out of gas? And I'm gonna need to have some snacks, right? And then I'm gonna have like there's all these emergency sort of like prepping, like all of these things that I feel more comfortable and more at ease with if I have. And I imagine that just multiplies enormously if you are taking care of many other people, even multiple generations of other people. And I can also see why some women would be like, no more. I'm not carrying stuff for you. You can carry your own stuff, right? And I think that's a phenomenon too for like a lot of heterosexual couples, like where the man is like, can you hold my stuff? Can you put this in your purse? Because like it doesn't really fit with all the things I have, and I don't want to hold it. I don't want to forget it. And it gets annoying, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, because
everyone carry their own stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you need a purse
Yeah.
too.
And you have decent sized pockets. So
Thank you.
Why isn't it a purse? So I think this is interesting. It's like I feel like it's a crossbody bag. Have you seen the Seinfeld episode where Jerry gets a purse and he's like, "It's a European carry-all," and they're like, "No, it's a purse," and he's like, "No, it's not." And there's still something there, I think, with like masculinity and carrying something that like bops up against your body and like kind of dangles or makes noise. And I think this is like particularly American, right? Because it's true that you go to Europe and you see men carrying all kinds of things, but still they're not using the word purse. Like there's something about the word itself that is feminized so much that men don't even want to like say it. Even if they're getting more comfortable with carrying stuff and see the advantages of having resources with them. It's got to be immerse, right? Like you need a new
messenger
portmanteau
bag. It's got a purpose,
right?
Right. A purse is frivolous, but a messenger bag.
Yeah,
I wear a crossbody bag, but I call it a purse.
it's interesting. Yeah,
Not tonight, because I did want to bring a purse big enough to put the book in.
Yeah,
and my crossbody bag doesn't, or my purse doesn't allow for that.
yeah. It's funny how you slip this. And like purse and pocketbook and handbag. And I mean, I also talk about like sacks, like literally sacks that enslaved women would use and repurpose, that they were given to pick cotton or food rations in, and how they made them into like secret pockets under their dresses, or they filled them and then like went and buried them so that they had like a runaway sack ready to go.
And they could take food away.
Yep.
That, I have a student who wants to write about resistance of enslaved people. I was like, oh, she's getting chapter 1.
Yeah.
Because the way that they had so little of their own, but they each had a sack.
Yeah.
And you talk so much about how that sack was also a tool of resistance.
Yeah. And Taya Miles is a historian at Harvard who has an amazing book called All That She Carried. And when it came out, I was like, darn, kind of close to my title. But it's so beautifully written. She's like a poet. And she's written a whole book about one sack that an enslaved mother named Rose gave to her daughter Ashley when she found out that her daughter was going to be sold away and she was never going to see her again. So she grabbed this sack and she put a handful of pecans, a tattered dress, and a braid of her hair in the sack, and then gave it to her daughter and never saw her daughter again. But her daughter kept it and she gave it to her daughter, who gave it to her daughter. And it was eventually found at a flea market in Tennessee, like 8 years ago. And the reason it stood out to the person who picked it up was it had the story of the sack embroidered on it in like different like rainbow colors. It was about how Rose filled this with, and it literally said what the ingredients were and her daughter, and she never saw her again. On the story, talk about a material culture artifact that's like so fascinating. And so she writes this whole history trying to figure out who Rose and Ashley were and how the bag like made it through like the Great Migration up north and how it was preserved, and then like how does it end up in a flea market. And it's from the early to mid 1800s, and now I think it's owned by the National African American Museum of History and Culture.
Yeah, I hear it's on display. My student who went there most recently, we were asking in class, it's still on display. But yeah, I don't know how she writes. She writes so much, and all of it is good. I don't know how she does it. It's amazing. Taya Miles. Yeah, she just came out with a Harriet Tubman book, didn't she?
Oh, I don't know about that one. Yeah, and she's writing it like,
I might be thinking of the wrong person. I think it's her.
Right around George Floyd's death, and she's talking about like Black love and resilience, and like it's just really moving.
Yeah, she clearly doesn't have Netflix. Yeah, she writes a lot. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah. So I'm interested in the memory stuff.
Sure. I
I'm
was thinking of
interested-
you as I was saying
Yeah.
it because it's your field of
So
expertise.
that's super interesting to me. And like the autobiographical memories are oftentimes built around like life transitions, right? Like you go to college, you get married, you have kids, you come out or transition or whatever. Like those big like life events get built into the story of your life. And I was wondering, um, in like your history, do people change purses at those events, right? And is there anything like that you've come across like from the history where um, sort of switching what kind of purse or what kind of bag you use at those life events might be like a good marker that then you would lead to those memories later on.
Yeah.
Is that lining up in that way?
Yeah. I'm thinking of one of the women I interviewed who's in her 80s now. I literally I found photographs of her getting arrested at a sit-in holding her purse up in the air. So and she was wearing a fur coat and she was telling the police, watch the purse, watch the coat, don't mess it up. And I was like, I gotta find this woman. And I literally found her in the white pages and called her up and had an amazing conversation with her over Zoom. And she told me about, the purse she had at that time and her whole outfit, like the whole family spent money on it. She was one of like 2 Black students at Barnard at the time in the early 60s. And so they bought her college wardrobe, right? And literally like aunts and uncles, everybody participated to make sure that she would fit in at Barnard. And that it was important that she wear her finest outfit when she showed up at the sit-in. And she ended up like getting a lawyer and having the lawyer convince the warden to like let her have her fur coat, and she like slept on it in the prison. So I got to talk to her about that, and I asked her like, do you still carry that? Do you still have that purse? And she said, no, now I carry these fabric purses. I forget who makes them. Vera Bradley. Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about? There's like they're like paisley and they have all these, and they're like made of cotton. And so they're like, they don't cut into you and they're really lightweight. And she said, well, I had breast cancer and I had a mastectomy and I couldn't have that cutting into me anymore. And I don't get around as well either. So I can't carry something really heavy. So she said, now I carry those and I have like a foldable cane that I can fold up and fit inside my purse as well. And she's like, and I leave the home a lot less often than I used to. It's kind of more of a big deal I got to prepare for, in my 80s. But she very clearly stated how like those purses were from when she was young, and those purses would actually be hurtful now. And she very sort of explicitly thought about what could I carry that would be easier on my body. Yeah. And I don't know if it was like when she got the breast cancer diagnosis that happened or exactly what moment, but clearly, yeah, that's the first thing I thought of when you shared that about marking different epochs.
All right, and if that's our last question, we can go ahead and close out. Thank you both for coming tonight. Thank you, Kathleen, for writing this incredible book, doing all this research, and thank you, Robin, for asking
holiday
incredible
shopping.
questions.
Don't buy him another purse. Buy him a first book.
The whole history of purses. If you're online and you'd like to buy the things she carried from Charis, you can do so by clicking on that teal button below our authors. And if you're in person, you can buy one from Yarrow up front and then get it signed by Kathleen while she's here. Thank you both. I think we're all walking away with lots of amazing knowledge and lots to ask and wonder about purses.
Thank you. Thanks everybody
so
for being
much.
here and those at home.